All right, guys, back again. iCoach VIP members. This time, guys, we are with a good friend of mine, somebody I've known now for a really long time. He basically just tortures me once a month. Uh, Mr. Dr. Wu, what's going on, my man? How are you?
What's up? Glad to be here. This is going to be awesome.
Yeah, I'm excited for it. I got my swag on for it and everything. So dude, tell us a little bit like about you, like who are you? How did you start the sports pod? What is the sports pod? And how did you get into this like crazy world of everything that you do now?
Yeah. Okay. So, hello everybody. I'm Dr. Wu. I'm actually Canadian, so don't hold that against me. And I don't actually say a all the time. And I don't have or maybe I say a boots. Do I say a boots? Maybe. I'm graduated from the University of Toronto, and I majored in anatomy and kinesiology. And then I went to the Canadian Memorial Chiropractic College. And my story is that I actually never I went to chiropractic school not to be a chiropractor. It actually was just another way to open another door for me. I had great mentors in Toronto, some of the brightest strength and conditioning minds, and they went into chiropractic to more in the performance side of sports. And some of my mentors include, people that work or collaborate with the Maple Leafs, which is the hockey team in Toronto, and that's all we live and breathe in Canada. The Raptors and the Blue Jays, and they used it. They used it in a way to get them kind of wedged into that world, and not necessarily in the medical world, not necessarily to pop backs. They were doing it mostly for performance-wise. And so I moved here in around 2010, 2011, and I worked with a local college here at SMU, so Southern Methodist University, and I treated a lot of their soccer players and basketball and some of their not track and field, cross country. And, my background and my perspective on healthcare is that we are all on a continuum, right? It's, the people that are pro athletes are on this end of the continuum, and the people that are just couch potatoes are on this continuum. And it doesn't matter where you are on the continuum. You can use things that pro athletes use. You just have to regress the movement to people to get down to here, right? And the people that are in like crazy athletes, can use a lot of the foundational stuff that people do at this part of the continuum. So for me, it's always been, it's not necessarily like one way of thinking about it, but more of a really wide way of doing things. And then just kind of applying those foundations and principles for particular cases.
Yeah. And I mean, guys, I can attest to this. So anybody that, I mean, there's a lot of people we work with and they'll see this that obviously aren't local, but those of you that are, I mean, I've been seeing you like for, I don't know, like 8 years or not, basically since
Yeah.
you came to the States. I mean,
Yeah.
I guess, right?
Yeah, like you started seeing me probably like a year and a half after I had actually moved to the States. And like I remember meeting you, you were like you were just getting into training at 24-hour fitness, man. Like I've seen the whole evolution from 24-hour fitness training mentality to then CrossFit mentality to your nutrition mentality. Like this like very slow which is now a like quick evolution of like how your perspective has changed over, and it's a testament to you of like you're able to change and you're able to like take in new ideas.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Yeah, it's definitely been a journey. I mean, as you know, I was trying to decide at one point I wanted to go in and do more of like what you do, and
Yeah.
made that decision off a conversation we had as well.
Right. Yeah,
So,
exactly.
but yeah, guys. So I mean, he's treated me, through like personal trainer days, like referring and helping clients, and helping me through injuries with them, and then also like when I was competing in sport, in the crazy world of CrossFit regionals, and then now I'm really stupid, and I just ran a half marathon this last Sunday, and like I was really really messed up. But that's a whole other story. So, but tell us a little bit more about, like, you know, again, like I always have to explain to people, like, they're like, well, what is he? Is he a chiropractor or a physical therapist? And I'm like,
Yeah.
technically he's a chiropractor, but like,
Yeah.
chiropractor. So like,
Yeah. So I would say like classically trained as a chiropractor, but I also have, like, I was brought up in the strength and conditioning world, right? Like I grew up and my mentors made me read like Speed and Strength, um, you know, made me follow Louis Simmons at Westside Barbell, like powerlifting, Olympic lifting. So I come from a background in strength and conditioning. I look at the world in a strength and conditioning world, but we incorporate everything. We incorporate physical therapy, we incorporate dry needling, acupuncture, Chinese medicine, Western medicine, sports medicine, chiropractic. And to me, you know, a lot of people, especially chiropractors, which is why I don't really love our profession, is that they want to pigeonhole you into this like one thing, right? I mean, I think the world wants to pigeon you into this one thing. And I never looked at it in this one very small world. In chiropractic, they really believe that everything emanates from the spine. And right, there are some things that do emanate from the spine, but not all movement comes from the spine, right? Movement comes from your brain, it comes from your central nervous system, it comes from your appendages, it doesn't come from your spine. So we learned a lot, and I especially make sure that I go to different continuing education credits, so I can see different perspectives. And to me, they're just another tool out of my toolbox, right? Like it's that whole adage of, if all you have is a hammer, then everything looks like a fucking nail. And I don't see the world as fucking nails. I feel like that's why I often get times, like this is like my last patient was, she had seen several doctors. She had seen a medical doctor, she'd seen an orthopedist, she'd seen a physical therapist, and I was the last person that she'd see. And it's because I can, first of all, take 10 minutes to actually listen to what her issues are. And B, I can pull from different parts of the fitness industry, from the health industry, and be like, oh, well, we can try this, this, and this because you've already tried all of these things. And I'm well educated in these different worlds. And so she's been getting great results, and she probably will only see me like 2 or 3 times when she's been dealing with this stuff for like a year now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and I can attest to that. I mean, that's been one thing that like I was, you know, it's been inspiring to me, is that like, I mean, this dude spends so much money per year on like further in education, and like, it's been cool. I mean, like, I remember like my first year, especially that I got into personal training, I spent a lot of money, and I feel like it definitely like kind of launched me forward. And then now like this whole world of like getting mentored, it's the same thing. It launches me forward. So yeah, but we talk about it all the time, you know, with our clients. We're like, I'm trying to educate you and equip you with as many tools that you need, like just building your nutritional tool belt.
Yeah.
So it's kind of the same
thing. And as you know, like not every human being is exactly the same. It doesn't follow this cookie cutter approach, right? Like you can't give somebody nutritional advice unless you fucking listen to them and listen to like what they've tried, what they haven't tried, what works, what doesn't work. Like all of these things are data points, and they're little things, they're little stories that give you a guide to where you actually need to go. But again, if you don't have the toolbox, like a very diverse toolbox, then you're just going to be like, well, it always leads to the same answer. The reason why I go to these continuing education courses is because it allows me to stretch my perspective a little bit and maybe build upon my foundational knowledge. And really, and the last thing I would say is, look, there's lots of people that I know in my profession that do lots of continuing education, but then they just kind of, I want to say just like kind of parrot what they've been learned, you know, like they just like repeat and regurgitate what they've learned, whereas they're not taking like that extra 2 seconds to like look deeper into what this continuing education is actually trying to teach. What is the principle? What is the foundation that they're actually trying to communicate to you? Then you can start to manipulate that foundation or manipulate that principle and be like, well, if it works in this instance, then it should work in this other circumstance, right? And a great example is Kelly Starrett talks about flossing a lot, flossing joints. And if for those of you that don't know who Kelly Starrett is, a physical therapist for CrossFit, and he uses this plastic band to really compress joints. And he talks about like creating like ranges of motion and so on and so forth. But I also understand, like I did a lot of research as to like why that works. And it works because it's part blood flow restriction, so BFR, which is quite a trend right now lately. But also it also compresses Golgi tendon body. So it like stops the joint from having to stop itself almost. So I use that foundation principle to be like, oh, well, you know what always happens with people who have ACL surgeries is that their knee gets basically locked up because there's been trauma in that region, right? And so I was like, hey, I wonder if I could use this floss to create more range of motion passively and actively to get them to further quicker their ACL rehab. And I've done that to almost every single one of my ACL rehab cases, and they always get better. Like within 2 or 3 weeks, they're already like standing on their feet and walking normal, no limping. And that's because I used the principle of what Kelly Starrett was talking about. Like, yes, if I just used exactly what K-Star wanted me to use it, which is just like banded distraction, or like to get into like a deeper squat, then I would only use it in those situations. But then I understood the foundation, the principle of what he was actually talking about, and I use it in so many different other applications. And that's what I mean by like, and I tell our doctors here at the Sports Pod, like, you need to look past what I'm telling you and look at the foundation or the principles of what I'm trying to teach you. This way you don't have to like regurgitate what I'm asking you to do. You can use what this is intended to be used for.
Yeah. I mean, knowing like building a staff and whatnot, that's a really cool way to do it, right? Because like you want people to like be able to like, you don't want them to be like robots, right? Like especially as we want to like as coaches, the same thing with us. Like I want us to be able to like get together and like have like team meetings and like talk about different clients and strategize together. Not just say, oh, I have to say this because, you know, whatever, like corporate tells me I have to say this, right?
Yeah, right. And the thing is, and I learned this from a podcast a long, long time ago, and I don't remember where, but Jeff Bezos, the CEO of Amazon, he was like, look, when I started the company, what I would do is I would explain the principle of why I was doing the things that I was doing, so that they could understand the decision trees that I was making, so that I wouldn't have to go back and tell them exactly what to do. And this is what I do when I teach rehab to my staff doctors is that like, look, I do it like, and I had a patient today who she brought in this like piece of paper and was like, this is what my physical therapist wants me to do. And I was like, this drives me crazy. Like movement cannot be conceptualized on a piece of paper. I'm sorry, you have to be able to look at it and you have to watch how they move, and then you have to make like analytics at that real time when they're actually moving, because no human being is exactly the same. No leg length is exactly the same. Your thigh, like one person's thigh could be 10 centimeters longer or shorter than the other. That's going to create different moments and levers in the knee, and you're going to have to modify that or cue it much differently, right? And so I always try to just kind of explain to the doctors, like, this is the principle that I'm using. These are the reasons why I'm doing it. But this, I don't want you to copy this exact exercise, because this exercise is literally just for this one athlete. And I'll probably never do it again, ever again with another athlete. So it's just like trying to teach your team members, like, yeah, this is like how we do things. And like, I'd rather you be detailed and have a good reasoning for it than you regurgitate like what I just did with this athlete.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, it's just, you know, I coach, right? Individualized coaching, just like, I mean, every person's completely unique, and like we have to take an individualized approach, whether it's with nutrition or whether it's with, you know, whatever. So, so talk to me a little bit, like, I mean, I always talk about, I ask the question when we're talking on like different nutrition experts, but like, for you, like, what is like the state of like movement in 2018? And maybe we can talk about like, you know, just kind of in general. So maybe, you know, the most common things that you're seeing with adults coming to you, with younger athletes that are playing sports. Like what are some of the most common like injuries or aches and pains that are going on?
Well, okay, so that is a very broad question. I mean, we could go into like what's happening in the fitness industry and like what I'm seeing a lot in the fitness industry. We could talk about what's going on in the chiropractic world or the therapy world, and we could also talk about what are common injuries. So let's just talk about things that I'm like most closely with.
Yeah.
And I would say the fitness industry is really headed towards this like weird mixture of CrossFit and HIIT training, right? Like I think, and people used to like shit on CrossFit so much, but then they're just using the same principles as CrossFit now. And like you see all these boutique gyms doing it. It's hilarious. It's just basically CrossFit in the CrossFit principles in just like a different form, like either in like lower weights or more volume or running or so on and so forth. So I think like HIIT training in general, and I think that is more to do with the population of like we have less time and we want more effectiveness. So people are like, I want to fucking just like jam in there as much as I can in 45 minutes, know that I got a good workout, and then I could fucking like go home and drink like a bunch of fucking wine and eat like a bunch of shit and be totally fine, which is like drives me insane because just like rehab, like there's no fucking magic pill to this. It's like I always have to fucking repeat this every single time. I must say this like at least 12 times a day, which is incremental progress. Okay? We get more done in a fucking year than we do in a fucking week. So we overestimate what we can do in a week and we underestimate what we can do in a year. We get more done if we just did incremental progress every single day. But everybody wants to fucking switch this flip. They suddenly have six-pack abs and you're like, dude, it doesn't fucking work like that. And they're like, well, how come you can do all this gymnastic-y stuff? I'm like, I've been doing this gymnastic-y stuff since I was like 18, 17 years old. Like it all looks easy for like the coaches and the fitness instructors because they do it for a living. Like give yourself a fucking break. Like do it slow. Do it correctly, and if you're consistent about it, I promise you, in a year's time, you're going to be an amazing CrossFit athlete. You're going to be an amazing runner. You'll have an amazing body if you follow what Coach fucking Murphy's telling you is that, be consistent, be reliable, and hold yourself accountable to those things, and you will be fine. I'm having to repeat this all the time. Is like, they're like, well, why is my arm still hurting? I'm like, well, did you do the smashing every day? Did you do the rehab every day? No. Okay. So it drives me fucking crazy. So I think that's the state of fitness and maybe a little bit about the health industry is that, everybody wants to cram in as much as they can in a short period of time and expect these amazing results. And it just doesn't happen that way. Look, physiology, anatomy, we haven't evolved that way. We've evolved very slowly as a human species, okay? It's not going to be like tomorrow you're going to lose fucking 50 pounds. Tomorrow your sciatic nerve is just not going to go away like that. Tomorrow your labral tear is not going to fucking stop hurting, dude. It's going to take some fucking time. Like, let us work. Let professionals do what they do best, give you good advice, and then fucking follow it. The state of chiropractic, I would say, is in influx. It's different. I come from a Canadian background. So Canadians, there's a lot more restrictions and there's a lot more guidelines. And I feel like it's very more sciencey. And I might get killed from other chiropractors on this, whoever might watch this. But look, honestly, my honest opinion is that American chiropractic is like just, if you have the money, get them through. Just get them fucking through the system. Where it's like completely different in Canada. It's like, what were your grades like? How hard are you willing to work? Like, and everything that we do is like very sciencey based. So hopefully there's a better swing to that in the States, but I don't see it very changing anytime soon. The most common injuries, I have to like go down by sport. So if you're like talking to me about gymnasts, I would say the most common injuries for gymnasts are labral tears in their hip. Like those are like the more major ones that I'm always worried about. And labral tear is both in the hip and the shoulder joint. The reason for shoulder joint is because girl gymnasts, they don't do conditioning like boys do in their upper body. Boys have like several of apparatuses that require a lot of upper body strength, and girls don't. Girls only have really upper body strength is uneven bars. But they do some fucking crazy ass shit on uneven bars. And they're like, think about how CrossFitters get labral tears from just kipping on a fucking bar. These girls are doing fucking aerials and like jamming on their fucking hands, and it's crazy. And they're much lighter, but their forces are much, much bigger, I promise you. And so the conditioning is not there. They do a lot of lower body conditioning because 3 out of the 4 apparatuses or events are lower body intensive, right? So I think that that's more concerning because that is a very easy preventative thing to fix. For my CrossFitters, it's always because you have lack of range of motion. So you're doing Olympic lifts when you don't have fucking shoulders, dude. Like, you don't. When your fucking shoulder range of motion is like this and you need to be back here to do a snatch, it's like, dude, why the fuck did you think you could do a snatch? Like, I often have to say this too, which is like, just because you can do it doesn't mean that you should do it, okay? And your body can only handle so much. It will adapt. Your body is an amazing organism. It will adapt to anything that you fucking make it do. But it will adapt for only a short period of time until it says, fuck you. I'm going to fucking murder you. And then you're going to come to see me, and I'm going to have to murder your shoulder, and you're going to be like, why are you doing this to me? And I'm going to be like, you did this to yourself. I didn't do it to you. You did this to yourself. So, look, I think the biggest thing that can be prevented in CrossFit is that it's so funny. It's like, what is that pyramid? The pyramid is like, what is the bottom part of the CrossFit pyramid? Nutrition. And then the second one, gymnastics, right? Isn't it second? The second part of it is gymnastics, and then it's strength, and then it's Olympic, and then it's like CrossFit. And no one ever focuses on nutrition. No one ever focuses on gymnastics. You know why? Because those are the 2 hardest things to fucking like clean up. And those are the 2 things that you have to be consistent with. And it's not sexy, and you're not going to get fucking huge from it, and you're not going to get fucking like amazing abs and blah, blah, blah. Why do I want to spend and it requires so much discipline. But look, all of my fucking top level CrossFitters all have that issue. They have nutrition issues and they have gymnastics issues. And they're like, I can get to this point, but I can never get like past this line. It's because, dude, clean up the bottom part of the pyramid and then everything will be fine. Yeah. So yes, I would say that about CrossFitters, and then general, just like normal human beings. I think that they just, like, going back to what the fitness industry is basically doing these HIIT interval stuff, and they don't have the capacity to do it. They don't have the capacity to handle that type of intensity and volume. I'm sorry. If you don't fucking work out 3 or 4 times during the week and you suddenly work out like a fucking asshole on Saturday, like, what do you think your body's going to do? It's going to break down, dude. Like, it's just not going to work. You have to build the capacity over. And look, I'm sure Justin won't mind me telling people this, but when he fucking did the fucking Dallas Marathon, he fucking ran 3 fucking times, okay? One was the first time was for 1 mile, right? The second time was for 2 miles. And then the third time was what? Maybe 2.5, 3 miles. 3 miles. Then he thought it would be a good idea to do 13.1 miles at the fucking race. So he's exactly what fucking most people think, that they can just fucking waltz into these fucking races, these half marathons, and they're like, yeah, I'm going to be totally fine. And maybe I'm the problem because I fix them and I enable this fucking stupid behavior to happen. But that is exactly what normal people do, right? And it doesn't have to be a marathon. It could be a fucking like, I've never run before, and then I'm going to do berries for fucking 60 minutes, and my fucking shit explodes because I ran at fucking 12 miles per hour for the last 45 minutes when the last time I ran 12 miles per hour was for a fucking Whopper to Burger King to make sure I didn't get there on time before I closed. So, look, those are the biggest issues in those 3-4 areas that you've asked me.
Yes. Well, that was good. I know that was a long-winded question, so you.
I got real passionate there at the end.
Yes, all the passion. All right, so there's a term, right? We say it all the time. I hear myself saying it. I'm like, you know, when people start working out more or whatever, it's like, hey, like make sure that you're actually doing mobility, you know, flexibility, recovery, whatever you want to call it. But what is like define mobility? Like what is mobility? Like what does that even mean when people are throwing that around?
Yeah, this is a very charged, I mean, within the therapy realm, this is a very charged word. It's a very a charged discussion right now. And I think most people would assume that mobility is just like your range of motion. Wrong on both accounts. So range of motion means how much range of motion do you have? Like, let's use our wrist, all right? I have range of motion, which is passive range of motion. So I can push my wrist all the way down to past 90 degrees, and on the other side, past 90 degrees like this. So that's what I would call range of motion. Mobility to me is how much active range of, like how much can you control your range of motion? So can you get all the way down to 90 degrees like this, or 90 degrees in extension like this, and actually hold that range of motion? This is often a reason why people who do a lot of snatching get labral tears or rotator cuff tears, is because they can actively only maybe handle this much of range. Like they have good range like this, or mobility. They have good mobility here, but then they can passively get to over here. But they can't hold weight in that position, right? It's not a weight-bearing range of motion. So the difference to me is mobility means that you can actually handle that range of motion. You can get to that end range of motion under your own accord. Passive range of motion means just that. It's passive. You don't own that range. You can get there, but you can get there with a lot of instability and a lot of risk to whatever joint or muscle that is attached to it. So that's the difference between the two.
Yeah, that makes sense. So when you talk about like, you know, you wrote a blog on it. I hear you talk about it all the time, but it's, you know, and I've heard it from other people, and we kind of say it in a similar way as well. But like the comment of like, you know, how committed are you to your body, right? Like, so what does that statement mean? And like why do y'all say that?
I'm glad that you bring this up, because I do talk a lot about this. And honestly, like, fucking most people treat their dogs, and I get it, you love your dog, but you treat your dogs and your cars better than you fucking treat your own fucking bodies, okay? Like, to me, I have an intimate relationship with my body, right? To me, are you married to your body? If you're married to your body, right, you do the necessary things that you need to do to make your marriage survive. You do the things that you need to do that you might not want to do, but you compromise anyways because you love that other person, right? If you're married. I'm not married, so I don't really know, but I am married to my own body. I'm actually married to the sports pod, honestly. I do lots of things for the sports pod I would never do for any other person. But look, are you married to your body? Or do you have a good relationship with your body? Or do you treat your body like a side piece? Like, I'm just going to let you, I'm going to fucking abuse you. I'm going to use you when I need you. And then when I don't need you, I'm just going to go fuck off, right? You need to have a good relationship with your own body, a good marriage to your own body. And when I say marriage, it means you are committed to doing the things that you need to do to see the longevity of your body. We only have one body, and unfortunately, our lives are infinite. We only have at max 110, 115 years if you fucking treat yourself real good and you have great genes. Most of us men on average have 72 to 80 years on this fucking earth. If you're 30 years old now, you've already done basically 1/3 of your fucking life. And how well have you treated it? Are you eating the things that you need to eat? Are you sleeping the way that you need to be fucking sleeping? Are you exercising? Are you doing the mobility work? Are you treating your body well? Do you treat your body like a temple? And this is what I mean by having like an intimate a relationship with your body, having a marriage with your body. You got to do the things that you don't necessarily want to do, but you do it because you love it. You know, you do it because it's a part of your life. You do it because you are committed to it. It's not like, the yo-yo, the yo-yo dieting is like it's a big issue, right? Because it totally is a dysfunctional relationship with your body. It tells me that you don't respect your body. It just tells me that I have this event in 3 months from now. I got to slim down and do these things that are very damaging, that are sometimes irreversible, sometimes not, but it definitely fucks up your metabolism. It definitely fucks up your shoulder or your fucking back. You're doing these things that are not necessarily looking for the long term, which goes back to what we talked about earlier, which is incremental progress over a long period of time, right? That relationship is also very intimately involved here, right? So to me, that's what, being committed to your body means. That's what marrying your body means, is just having that commitment for the long term.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, so what advice do you have then? I mean, and I'm sure, everybody kind of struggles with it at some point, but of course there's all these different areas of life. We talk about it as a mason jar with the big rocks that to focus on. And then there's all these little pebbles that are all the people marketing to you. Right. So from your standpoint and you working with clients, I mean, what are some of the big rocks, if you will, that you're trying to make sure that you're getting these people to do? And I know it's individualized, but maybe if there's commonalities at all.
Honestly, it's just, I would say one of the big rocks for just mobility is if the adage of if you don't use it, you lose it is an actual thing, right? If you only use your shoulder in this range of motion, your body is going to adapt to it, and it's only going to use this range of motion. And then this becomes your new normal, and that's not normal. Your range of motion should be all the way back here. So our number one biggest rock probably at the sports spot is that use your range of motion in all ranges, and you have to practice that all the time. And it doesn't have to be an hour of doing it. It can be just 5 minutes right before you work out. But also the other big rock is just trying to be consistent over time, right? So we try to make it as easy as possible for the least amount of time, right? We get that you don't have a lot of time, but if you just did this one thing every day for the next the rest of your life, you'll be fine. It's just like brushing your teeth, we care more about our teeth than we do about our joints. And it's look, my brother's a dentist. I know how much he charges. He's way more expensive than I am.
Yeah. Well, I mean, a lot of this stuff is lifestyle habits, right? It's the same thing. We're trying to get people to be consistent as well. I mean, that's the hardest thing, right? So
yeah.
I guess when you, do you do anything to help people? Let's say for instance, you have this client and they know what they need to do and they're just not doing it. Do you have anything to help them plan ahead and set themselves up for success to be consistent? Put it down if you want to freaking get fixed.
I mean, look, I would say, the sports pod, we are always trying to educate our patients and our athletes all of the time as to why we are doing the things that we're doing. And I think in that instance of when people really understand the why, then they are more adherent or compliant to what we're asking them to do. The other thing is that so I talk to my colleagues all the time, and they're always having issues with compliance. And I have the opposite. My patients go to the max in the sense of I'll ask them to do it and they'll do it way too much, right? So it's not necessarily motivation. I think it's just education and just making sure that we as therapists, we as fitness leaders are giving them the right education and also tempering expectations. Because I think people think oh, it's going to be that easy. And if you just tell them truthfully, look, this is going to take a couple of months, but I promise you on the other side, it's going to be good. And not trying to do that fear-based bullshit. I try never to go into that fear-based stuff and just being really positive about it. So I mean, that's the best way I can say is to really just try to focus on that. As a therapist, that's something that we as therapists can control, because we can't control another person. You know this.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's the quote I love. It's like, education drives compliance. And so it's a big thing. I mean, it's like, look, I'm not just going to like say, hey, here's your macros, right? Like I want to like educate you and equip you with tools so that you can be
successful. Exactly.
So I mean, you didn't mention anything about like low back. And I know that like people, like I feel like a lot of people in America have like low back issues and probably, but like, I mean, do you see a lot of people with low back issues or?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, I'm probably the only chiropractor that probably sees as many shoulders as I see as like low backs. I see like so many like appendage issues that it seems like I will have like every once in a while a low back. But I do know that a lot of people suffer from low back issues. So there are a couple of things that can help with low backs. First of all, if you have low back issues, like the first time you have it, you should go see a professional right away. Like for whatever reason, like if our tooth aches, you go see a dentist right away, but like if your back hurts, they're like, I'm just gonna rest it for like the next 24 hours and then things are just gonna be fucking magically better. Like I'm a crazy person, but like I would want to fucking know why the fuck my back hurts. Like this has never happened to me, but for whatever reason, if it's your low back, they're just like, well, whatever. If I just sleep it off, it's going to be totally fine. No, bro, it's not going to be fine. There's something going on. So I think like going to see a professional right away about your low back and then getting that snipped right at the beginning, it just makes it so much easier on the therapist and makes it easier for you. If you ask me like what are the common issues with low back, it's very complicated. But if I had to like put one thing on it, it'd be a combination of having terrible hip mobility and having a shitty psoas. So psoas, your psoas muscle is a muscle that attaches from the front part of your spine and attaches to your leg. And it's the muscle that gets shortened when we sit for long periods of time because it's in a shortened position. Now, what do we do as a post-industrial world or economy now? We fucking sit for a living. We get on a computer. We're like this. And that really fucks up your low back. And honestly, that's one variable. The second variable would be just shitty hip mobility. So look, like I ask people just to bring their fucking knees up towards their just belt line. They can't do it. Or they can't get into a deep squat. Or they can't bring a straight leg raise. Or they can't even fucking touch their toes. Like, look, you should be, honestly, I'm sorry. Whoever told you that touching your toes is useless. No, that's an actual issue. You need to get that looked at. Then the last thing I would say is that we have stopped moving as a society. We only move in these, like, even if you are very athletic, you might move for like 4 hours out of the week now. What? That's crazy. I am lucky because I have to move around in my job all day. I never have low back pain. I never have like these huge, like long issues because I'm moving. But now we spend like 8-9 hours on a chair and don't move that much. Like our bodies were never evolved to do that. Our bodies were evolved to kill a fucking animal and then bring it back to fucking the family and like hack it up and eat it. And we don't do that anymore, right? We don't hunt. We don't gather anymore. We just fucking sit in front of our computers like Wall-E and we fucking have back pain. So I would say those are the three main reasons as to why there's probably, I don't want to say epidemic, I think that people use or throw around that term way too much, but there's a large group of people with low back pain.
Got it. Yeah, I mean, I was just in the office this last, whatever day that was, Friday or Monday, I forget which day it was.
Yeah.
It's like, you hear about it all the time. I know that one day that guy came in, but
yeah.
I think that's one of the most common things I hear is just low back pain.
Yeah.
I mean, thinking about like having a kid or like that, or like having to be mobile in your job, like that's a big thing that could affect your life.
Yeah, it could totally affect your life. And honestly, like I have athletes and patients that have had such bad back pain it's debilitating and they take an entire week off of work. And again, like this is the thing, and it goes back to what we were talking about, is like, are you married to your body? Like, how committed are you to your body? You know, like, at the first sign of a problem, you should probably come and see me or a professional or whoever that can, like, at least like diagnose what's going on and then give you things that can like get you out of that situation. But we leave it. Like, look, I use this analogy all the time. It's like, if you drove a BMW or a Ferrari and that fucking check engine light came on, would you not go to the mechanic like immediately? Or would you continue to fucking drive it on the highway? You'd go to the mechanic immediately. Well, guess what? Back pain is your fucking red engine light, dude. You gotta get that checked immediately. But we treat our bodies like garbage and we take it for granted. And then they're like, well, it's too much money, Dr. Wu. I'm like, look, are you telling me that a week off of work and not making money for an entire week and being in bed is more money? You're losing way more money doing that than if you just saw me for 1 hour and I'd get you back to work immediately. So I don't know. The whole financial money thing argument, it just drives me crazy sometimes.
Yeah. Well, hey, I mean, it's the same thing with, with us as well, right? Like it's an investment that somebody's making. And, unfortunately, a lot of like human beings, we let ourselves get such to a bad point that like that's when we finally do something about it, rather than being a little more proactive in the approach.
Yeah. An analogy I always use is like, look, there's two ways of paying for something. You can either pay up front, it's painful, but I promise you paying on the back end is with interest and it's even more painful. So, you could do it one or two ways. And to me, for me, especially because I'm busy, you are certainly very busy too. To me, I don't necessarily care about the finance about it. It's like the time I lose. Like I can't afford the time to be off. You know what I mean? Like I need to be at my best all the time. Do I want to be waking up at 5:30 in the morning to work out? Fuck no. But I do it because I know that it's an investment in me, and I know that it keeps me healthy and it keeps my mind straight, and it allows me to do what I do at a high level. And, I mean, if I miss a workout, I just always feel like shit. So I just do it.
Yeah. I mean, it's like self-discipline that like you've done a really, really good job with, obviously, is like being an entrepreneur. And like, always like I hear the phrase all the time, and it's something I'm always like striving to get better and better at. Never claim to be perfect, but like, like lead from the front. There's a lot of people that don't prioritize their own self, right? Especially like we're like, hey, my kids, my husband, like, like I gotta take care of everybody else before I take care of myself.
Yeah.
So I mean,
Tony Robbins always says that, which is like, why do you think the airport or the airplane pilots tell you to put the mask on yourself first? Because if you don't put the mask on yourself, you cannot help your own children. So, it's the same thing. And I think that a lot of people have to do some soul searching to get to that level, and unfortunately it's always at a precipice, like when they get to a point where like they've totally fucked themselves and they're like, can I even get back from this place? In your industry, it's like I've gained like 50, 100 pounds over the last 5 years. I don't even know where it came from. And it's like creeping obesity. And for me, it's like, well, this back pain started to creep until I got to a point where I can't even fucking walk. And in both cases, sometimes, especially in my world, like sometimes your back can get so bad that I can't even pull you out. Like, look, I'm not one of those chiropractors that is ever going to say like surgery's bad. I think surgery has its place. I'm going to try to avoid surgery for you. But there are times where, look, the joint is so damaged that I can't fucking do anything. Like we can just treat the symptoms, but it's always going to be like this, So, I never want to have that conversation. If you come to see us early enough, we don't have to have that conversation, but it's always sad to have that conversation with people.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I say it all the time, I think that like a lot of people, they forget how they're like supposed to feel, right? Like they get so used to feeling like crap all the time that like they forget like what feeling good even is supposed to feel.
I know. And like there are times where like I feel just under the weather. Like I'm very self-calibrating. So like when I get a little bit of like allergy or feeling a little tired, I feel miserable. Like I even get like the slightest of headaches, like not even like 2 out of 10 headache. And I'm like, fuck this. People deal with this shit all day. Like this is crazy. Like I'm immediately like, as soon as I feel something, I'm like, Dr. Ward or Dr. Hogan, just get on it. Let's get it fucking done. I might be a baby about it because I don't ever feel like this ever, you know? So it sucks to feel like that all the time. And that's that whole thing of like, you got to watch out of like, if you don't take care of this shit, this becomes your new normal. And that's fucked up. And I'm always like, dude, that is not normal. I'm sorry. That's fucked up. You got to get it fixed.
Yeah, I completely agree.
Yeah.
So I want to respect your time. I know it's late here in Dallas, Texas, but hey, so I want to kind of like chime out with like, and I know this is kind of like a general question, but like, what are just like your top tips right now? Somebody just watched it, they're looking for some action items. Like, what are some action items we can give them to like go and write out into a journal or whatever they need to do, or take action tonight or tomorrow? Like, what are your like top thing or like top 3 things?
Top 3 things that are in the fitness world are just keeping healthy. You know, I would say, honestly, any type of like physical activity is a good thing, you know, and it could be the smallest fucking thing, but it's just got to be a small inch forward. And so, you know, for the person that's like never worked out, like honestly, taking a 10-minute walk around the block, even out to your driveway, and then coming back, like that's still a step forward. So, you know, just building that habit and getting out there every single day is paramount. Or like, instead of taking an escalator, just take the fucking stairs. Like little things that you can do easy. It's just easy things, you know, get your body moving. And that's like part of the reason why I love Fitbits, is because it just makes people accountable of like how much they're actually walking. Number 2 is, look, there's going to be a cajillion people to tell you what you should feel like or what you should, or I might even tell you, but at the end of the day, you make the decision, you know what I mean? And look, you are the person that is in charge of your own body. Like we can tell you all the things that you want to hear. We can tell you all the things that you need to do, but at the end of the day, you have to make that fucking decision. So I think like all of us, and certainly myself too, I always have to take a moment to pause and be like, what are the priorities in my life? And are these the same? And are my actions congruent with those priorities? And then number 3 is, look, I think that there are going to be a lot of people, there are a lot of people in our lives, there are a lot of people in media and whatever that are fairly negative, okay? Look, every time I turn on the fucking TV, it's negative. You can choose to be on the negative Nancy side of that, but you can choose to be on the positive side. So look, understanding that you're human, understanding that none of us are perfect, understanding, you know, the shit that you see on Instagram is not, it's the best parts of people. It's not the fucking real shit. Like we all go through our own struggles. Giving yourself a fucking break and understanding that we are all faulty, we are all broken some way, somehow, makes it easier to make that step a little bit forward. Because I certainly know a lot of people that like can't move forward because it's not perfect, but none of us are perfect. We just got to move forward. So those would be the 3 things that I would chime in for people, and just to make that change, as you can honestly make that change right now. So those are the 3 things.
That's true. I love that, man. I couldn't agree more. You know, I think that's just the biggest piece for so many people. Like it is, I mean, it's a struggle for myself. It's a struggle for like everybody. It's like consistency in whatever area it is that you need consistency in.
Yeah.
And also like, I mean, a really big piece is like, we have to make sure that we're not like creating self-sabotage. So like, just because you're not freaking perfect every single day,
Yeah.
you don't need to just say screw it and sabotage. Like that's the difference. We're all like getting on and getting off, right?
Yeah.
Motivation comes and goes, but like we really just need to make sure that, you know, you just can't create self-sabotage for like a week and a month and a year. Like that's what pushes you about.
Yeah. Look, your journey is going to look like this, but as long as it continues to climb forward and moving forward, you're okay, you know? And so I think you're right. Like people self-sabotage themselves, and they're like, and they use that one excuse to just like crack open the negative stuff and then they just like, fuck it, I'm just never going to be like that. I just accept who I am, and just like, and it goes back to what I was saying, which is like, understand what your priorities are, and then try to evaluate, are my actions reflecting my priorities? And if they are, great. If they aren't, then make the change. You know, you are in charge of you.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. All right, my friend, how can everybody find you? Obviously, you know, where are you at locally? And then where can they find you, like on the social media, website, all
Yeah.
that?
So the Sports Pod has 2 locations. We have one in the Design District in Dallas, so right near the American Airlines Center. And we have another clinic in Frisco, which is where all of our high school athletes and college athletes come and see us. And we're right off of Main Street in Frisco, Texas. And then on social media, you can find me personally at Dr. Blake Wu, Dr. Blake WU, and then for Sports Pod stuff and like all our community stuff is at the Sports Pod. And those are the best 2 ways of like getting a hold of me.
Awesome, my man. Well, dude, thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking the time and coming on. And this is our first kind of like video into, you know, kind of like the mobility, you know, physical therapy, chiropractic world. So I'm excited for
it. Woo! First one.
Awesome, man. Let me sign us off, and then we'll chime out here.